I just want to ask the lads their overall view of these Lions tours as a general concept. Starting with yourself, Jay.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been the biggest Lions fan, even historically, and particularly this season. I for a number of reasons, I suppose I didn't really have the headspace with Leinster's kind of up and down season to kind of really think about it. But this week, kind of the bug has kind of caught me a small bit. When we start hearing about the game, the Aviva on Friday, or Friday just gone. Um, but I suppose, I mean, this one in particular has a bit going for it now. In particular, I mean, from the off, there was always the kind of coach factor, right, where you have Andy and Joe, two very familiar. The lads know each other really, really well, and they know exactly what's important to each other in terms of what they're looking for in a team, what they're looking for in a performance. They've been in kind of two in a box with Ireland for however many years it was. But obviously, we've heard from the Ireland camp that they're massively different in terms of how they approach, say, the people side of coaching. So that would be one. That was always going to be one kind of tete, in terms of how do two coaches who know each other so well surprise each other on the pitch. That was always going to be interesting. But I suppose that the reason why maybe not an awful lot of people were looking forward to the rugby side as much of it over the last 2 years, I suppose one is just there's just so much rugby now. The kind of hunger is the best sauce side of it is just kind of gone. I mean, as you said, Leinster Leinster Rugby in Dublin won the URC final last week in the
Did
Aviva
they?
last
Oh
week.
yeah, they did. They
They
did.
did. But if that was even less, like, I mean, that was less than 7 days before this game at the Aviva. So,
Yeah.
it's there's just so much going on all the time. But I don't think you'll be forgiven for I think maybe saying the tour was going to be a foregone conclusion is probably a bit harsh. But I think a lot of people, given the form that the Wallabies had up until, say, a year and a half ago before Joe's tenure was quite poor. I think a lot of people thought that it was going to be, you kind of said to yourself, if Wallabies got one game, it'd probably be a good result for the tour. But we've seen over the last 2 years, we've seen sort of, the Wallabies have massive improvements since Joe's come on board. They came to, they're starting to compete better at TRC. They came to Northern Hemisphere. They kind of beat England. They absolutely hockeyed Wales. Sorry, Ed. But and then they run us very, very
That's
close.
fine. That's fine. Everyone's hockey this. So
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's the only dig I'm throwing today. That's the only dig to that effort. But and then they ran us very close, right? I think Gus McCarthy had to come on and save the day in the November series. If you remember, it was a very, very tight game. So that makes it, they could have every chance of stealing more than one game in this. They might steal the whole thing, to be honest, because Joe seems to be doing wonders with them. He's at the coming in. He's clearly has a very clear vision. There's some veterans, not being. I think Samuel Karevi hasn't made the cut this time. James O'Connor is moving from the Wallabies, so he's gone. Will Skelton back in from the cold, and then even just gone. Right, I mean, the Aussie teams in Super Rugby were far better this season. So I don't know whether Joe just came in with a golden period coming through, or whether it's all happening, or it's related, or it's maybe a mixture of both, like most things are. But I mean, if you look at, say, the Brumbies, who made it to the knockouts, they didn't make it past the quarters. But if you think about the backbone of that team and the backbone of the Wallabies, they're not very different. And those guys are starting to really play. Like Noel Alessio, you have Nick Frost, and so on and so forth, right? So Lenny Iketel, all these names are probably going to be on the starting 15 versus the Lions. And those guys are starting to play really, really well. And even from the backroom staff, Joe was brought in, like, some reasonably strange names for folks maybe outside Irish rugby, but even they brought in Owen Toolan as lead analyst, I believe, if you remember from the 42. So he clearly has, well, remember that saying this, he obviously has a very clear vision of what he wants this Wallabies team to be. And what we know about Joe is he's very rarely wrong about what something needs to be done to get from a team from being where they were to being very, very successful. Will they win a World Cup? Who knows? We didn't. But I mean, from where he brought Ireland, where we started, to where we were when he left was very, very impressive. And I think the final aspect of why it's probably more interesting is Andy's selections, right? I think he's taken flack in the past, especially from Irish kind of maybe non-Leinster folk, about how he selects squads. He's been more of a system man, which I think is probably fair to say. I mean, if you take the kind of opposites of, say, Sam Prendergast and Gavin Coombs, right? So people are saying, why is Sam Prendergast being chosen? And say Gavin Coombs not being chosen, when they're both, they're both fantastic players. But Sam fits what Andy's trying to do, and Gavin doesn't seem to fit what Andy's thinks. That seemed to be the smoking gun why Coombs hasn't got as much time. But that's not how he's approached this Lions tour. He's very much kind of made a bit of a dream team, more of a kind of fancy team, like you're picking over a weekend on the Super Brew. So it's not something that he's classically done, but we've seen he's a very good people man. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how he whips these lads into shape over a reasonably short period of time. He seems to be pretty uniquely qualified to do that. He seems to be a kind of one of the lads, so to speak, but the lads kind of playing for each other too. And there's just so many Irish players involved in this one. It's hard not to be rooting for these guys, and it's nice to have a chance to root for. Like we get to tell Pierre that he needs more shoes, just like the Scots do week in week out. Now I know who Jack Morgan is. I didn't know before this weekend. But yeah, look, it's as I said, I'm far more excited than I was a little while ago, and I'm hoping it's going to be great rugby.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the same. It's the same 4 year cycle every time. I like when the season before a Lions tour comes on, when it gets to the start of the season, you look at all the fixtures, you see the Lions at the end, you go, Jesus, that's miles away. I've no interest in that whatsoever. And I'm always thinking, got another bloody Lions tour. And I mean, this is literally the last bit of Lions merch I paid full price for. And this is from the 2001 tour to Australia. Do you know what I mean? It's like each time the tour comes up, I'm almost less enthused about it. But plus, they are adding more and more rugby to the calendar all the time. There's this World Club Championships, World Leagues, and all this. And there's more rugby left, right, and center. And I just feel, well, maybe if something was to go, it's the Lions. With all it just doesn't fit in the professional age. All those arguments, but then the games start, and a team is actually picked, and then you see them out in the pitch. And the game, it kicks off, and of course, it's like that Al Pacino gif. I got dragged back in, and you love watching the rugby, and so it's always interesting to see. And plus, we're always talking about how we pick teams, and we're always talking about picking all-star teams. And if you put these teams together, what would you come out with? This is one area of rugby where it actually happens every 4 years, and you actually see the games played out. So there is a lot of positives in that respect as well. What do you think, Ed? What's your take on the Lions tours?
Well, firstly, I just come back to what you lads, the sort of feeling I'm getting from you lads, especially with Jay, seems quite coy. The pre-build-up I've been getting from my Irish friends has been far more bullish. I think he's sort of ratcheting it down a little bit because let's face it, this is an Irish and British Lions team. I think this is the Irish Lions. I think it's a lot on the line for Irish rugby with this tour. You're facing historically perhaps the weakest Wallabies outfit ever. Probably the strongest Irish team ever is the core of the group. A lot of Irish players in there, quite controversially in some cases. I think that there's a lot on the line for Irish rugby on this tour. And I would say that, there's a lot of parallels as well with the tour 12 years ago when, at the time, obviously it was a stronger Wallabies team. At the time, Wales were by far the strongest of the four nations and made up the majority of the test side, and some brutal but correct calls were made to end some careers at that point, and they got the job done. You got to say we got the job done, and we became part of history, and that Lions team did. So there's a lot of parallels there, and just I'd probably be feeling a bit twitchy if I were you, because the Aussies have improved in the last 12 months. I think they did run you close. There's I'm not sure from watching last night, felt a little bit disjointed as you would have expected to, in fairness, but they're gonna have to find some form quite quickly, and we'll see, because about a year ago my Irish friends were just absolutely, you couldn't imagine that the Aussies would score a point against this Lions team. So it's nice to see Jay a little bit more edgy now.
Yeah, I suppose when once Joe Schmidt got involved, I suppose that kind of changed it. It looked things weren't going that great for Australian rugby up to a while ago, but you can always see them. If someone came and brought them together, I suppose it could make a difference. And I suppose a lot of the feedback I'm getting from some Irish fans is like maybe it's great to see a mostly Irish team, and maybe it was great for Welsh fans to see a mostly Welsh team back in the day, but it was you know, the other thing is you don't want them to get injured out there to get away. It's almost it's a bit of both. You want to see them succeed, you want to see them do well, but you know, you're a bit anxious for them as well because we'd want them wearing the green jersey again. But but like I say, I mean, it's there. It's not going anywhere. They're already planning for New Zealand in 4 years' time. It's going to happen. So we might as well, I suppose, just enjoy it when it comes down to it. You know, it's. And just by the way, are you actually hitting any of those seagulls?
No, it's my. I don't know if the video is going out live, but yeah, my dog keeps running at me. I have to throw the ball back for her. So,
oh right, okay.
So I'm not just crazy or something.
No.
Out of shot, I promise you that there's a dog who keeps coming and giving me a ball.
I was saying to myself, how many tennis balls does this guy have?
He's doing a good job bringing him back.